right, so we are here today because we're going to be talking about the most powerful selling tool. The most powerful tool. But you know what, I was thinking about it, and you know what, this might not be actually the best tool. So, I don't know, maybe we shouldn't talk about this.
Why not?
No, really. So like, maybe I shouldn't share this idea. Probably really, really stupid. This idea is probably really dumb, what I'm going to talk about. What goes through your mind when you hear that? Like, what would you say, Ethan?
What are we doing here?
Right? I say that if I just start out a presentation, I say, I'm going to tell you what the greatest tool is, and then say, you know, this is really a dumb idea, though. What are you going to say? What would you say?
I would be quiet for a minute.
And then you'd say,
Well, tell me why.
I want to know.
Yeah,
Tell me why.
I'm curious.
Right. So the idea here that I'm going to talk about today, it's not a very, Heather and Kate have heard this before, this is not a very complicated idea. It is very simple, but it's so incredibly effective. And the goal is to try and get people who you are working with to actually explain to you why you are the best person to be working with. So it's really kind of a reverse psychology. This is called a negative reverse. Have you heard of it? You guys heard of negative reverse before? No? All right, so it's actually a selling tool, but it's based upon reverse psychology, where you're telling somebody to do the opposite of what you want, or doing something that would normally result in the opposite of what you want. So it's based upon that, but it's not reverse psychology. So a normal sales situation, this is what happens in a normal sales situation. When we are sitting down with buyers or sellers, and they come up with an objection or something that you're like, oh gosh, I got to get around that, or, you know, oh, I'm interviewing other agents, things like that. Normally what we're going to do is we're going to explain away a concern. We're going to try to explain to somebody why it's not, you know, their concern isn't valid. We're going to try and overcome their objections, and we're going to pivot from a difficult question. So we're going to be like, yeah, you know what, let's talk about something else. So this is your typical sales situation, right? We've been there. I get it. Right? That's how it would normally work. So customers expect to be sold. So they're ready to push back. They're ready to, they're ready for us to explain what we're trying to think, what we want them to say, how we want them to buy from us. So they're ready to push back. So this is the negative reverse. The sales agent agrees with the prospect who continues to ask them to elaborate without trying to overcome or convince them otherwise. So the goal is, as an agent, then, when you're sitting with a seller, to agree with them, to say, you know, yeah, you're probably right. I'm probably not the best agent. Because then they're like, what are you talking about? What do you mean you're not the best agent? Why are you here? Say, well, you know, honestly, maybe I'm not the best agent because, you know, obviously, let's pretend it's somebody who you are a new agent, okay? You have no sales, and you know you're up against somebody who has a lot of sales, and you know an objection is going to be that, well, this other agent has a lot of sales. Clearly, we know we might not be the right agent. Like, there are some times when I go into a deal where I'm like, I might not be the right agent, but I still can get the listing. I did this on a listing in Glencoe. You know, I'm a great agent, sell a lot of houses. I don't focus in Glencoe. So what I did is really came out with that up front to say, you know, I might not be the right agent. And then the client's like, well, why do you say that? So you know what, I don't live in Glencoe. However, what I do know is I've sold 600 homes. And I do know I've sold more than every other agent who's in this town right now I'm competing against. So by saying that, you agree with them. I might not be the right agent. You're right, I might not be the right agent. Because it's true. Right? It's authentic and it's real. So there are two ways you're going to kind of go about this. You're going to create a softener statement. Like I said, you're right, you know what, I might not be the right agent. I understand you might be looking for somebody with, you know, who lives in Glencoe, let's say. I understand that. Because it's true. A negative statement is opposite to the position you want to take or the direction you want to steer the conversation. So let's say It's kind of the same thing a little bit, the negative statement where you say, I'm not the right agent, so it's kind of the same thing. I use the example of something like when you see somebody in the office who's like, oh, I look terrible. Your first comment is to say, no, you don't, you look great, right? So people are getting that reinforcement. I look terrible. No, you don't. So that's a negative statement. So these are the softening statements that I think are really important. I use these a lot. I see what you mean. I understand. Which means what? So
Completely valid concern. You're absolutely right. I say that a lot because it's true. And when you start to become this, you start to become authentic, and you're no longer a salesperson. Because in reality, we're not always the best fit. There are going to be people with objections. People have objections about me. And what it does is it gives them a pause because you're not coming at them but being like a difficult salesperson. So here's a good one. People are going to fight to the death to preserve their right to say no. So you want to make sure you give them that right. So the negotiated environment becomes that more constructive and collaborative almost immediately. So that's Bruce Never Split the Difference. It's a good book. But the point is that you need to give them that opportunity to say no or to lead the conversation. If you're always trying to come at them hard about why they need to go with you, they're going to feel pressured into it. And when you start out your relationship by giving them this comfortable place where they feel comfortable around you, that's how the transaction will always go. That's how your relationship will be with them from start to finish. Because if you start out being honest and authentic, when the time comes in the middle of the transaction where you have to tell them the price is too high, that's how you started the conversation. Anthony's actually very authentic, I know that. This is kind of your thing. So you're going to make the prospect reconsider or explain the reasons behind their objection. So, what I want to say is, I'm not the best agent because I haven't sold this town. You're right. Tell me more about that. Tell me more about that. What is important to you about that? That's a good question. What is important to you about that? Well, I really want somebody who is here in town, who knows this area really well because my friends use this person. This person is at my tennis club. So now what you're starting to do is you're starting to get the objections. You're starting to hear the objections that they have without, because they might have objections that you're never able to get out of them until the end after you've left. And you didn't realize it was an objection because you didn't get it out. Like, for example, they have a friend who's a real estate agent. A lot of times you don't know that, right? You don't know that they're talking to somebody else. So I usually will say something like, you know what, it's a great idea. Go interview a couple agents. And they're like, well, what do you mean? Oh, no, I think it's a great idea. I'm not a mind reader. I don't know. I'm not a mind reader. So go talk to other people. And then they're like, oh, okay. What's the reason? Well, I like to hear what other agents say as well. Do you have other agents you're talking to? Well, yeah, sort of. But do you see how that sort of softens the whole conversation rather than saying, who are you talking to? Because they might not tell you. So now I've allowed them that opportunity I've given them permission to say they're going to go ahead and talk to someone else. So prospects want to buy, this works because prospects want to buy, but they don't want to be sold. And this is huge. Negative reverse selling helps to make your potential buyer think it's their idea. It's really the key in this. So these are the things you can say. It's probably not a good idea. You aren't ready for it. I don't think I'm a good fit. This is a good one. Okay. If I were you, I would go with my friend as an agent. I'll play it out. Is that, you have a friend that's an agent? Oh gosh, I'd go with your friend too, probably, if you have that good of a relationship. So then what are they going to say? What do you think they'll say after I say that?
Well, I don't want to make the relationship bad.
Yeah. Exactly. So now you're getting them to say what you want to tell them.
So yeah, let's play it out. So yeah, you know what? Actually, if I were you, I'd go with a friend as an agent too.
Well, I really want to work with them, and I play tennis with them all the time.
Yeah.
But I feel like if I'm not happy with the results, it's going to sour the relationship.
Yeah, I totally get that. Are you nervous about working with them though? I mean.
Well, I think that they do a good job, but I do feel a sense of obligation.
Mm-hmm. Are you feeling like it's you or your wife that feels more obligated?
I would say we both feel a little bit obligated.
Mm-hmm. So what happens if the relationship goes bad? How does that look?
Well, feel a little bit awkward when we're playing tennis.
Right, so it's these types of conversations where you actually bring out the objection right up front and you address it right then and there. So now you're never going to be down the road where then they're like, I'm going with my friend. You already knew that was a possibility, and you've already gotten them to see the bad points of it. Does that make sense? So let them defend themselves is really the key. If you choose the negative reverse route, you might hear the word no. So you have to be ready for this, okay? It's true, because they might say, you're right, you're not the right fit. They might say that. Or, yep, no, I'm going with my friend. Well, now you know. Now you haven't wasted time, energy. Great, okay. Well, is there anything I can do to change your mind? No, not at all. It's done, over, move on. So that's kind of the key behind, you just have to be totally open, authentic about it, and just say, it's okay. If somebody says something like that to me, I will follow up with another question. With 1 being not at all, 10 being ready to purchase today, where are you at on a scale of 1 to 10? I don't ever let anything like this go without trying to be a little more direct with them to get them to come back to me. The key is always having this open and honest conversation. Like, I'm not going to be like, well, you need to do this today. I did that one time because my coach at the time told me to do it. I was going to a listing appointment, and he told me to do this. And he's like, no, you need to get the deal done today. And I was like, well, I don't know. He's like, no, and I did. I pushed, and the wife was furious. She was furious because I was so rude, I think, and they didn't choose me. And he told me, the husband told me that's why he didn't choose me. So if I had said something like this, she just wasn't ready to make a decision. And I did not respect her decision. That was the problem. So this comes with a significant risk. The deal could blow up in your face. But at least you know early on, and you can move on. So test on your friends and family. It's easy. I'm giving a lot of great interpersonal relationship conversations this week, right?
Yeah.
The disc and this.
Yeah.
So these are the things you can say. You're right. I don't do anything around the house. My husband would say that, it would be true. But if he, let's say we were arguing, he's like, you don't do anything around the house. I say, you know what, you're right. I don't. Then he's like, now what do I do? Now what do I do? But you know what? You do other things, So like if I throw this out to him, which sometimes I do, I don't say you're right because he doesn't do that to me. But if I say I don't do anything around the house, he's like, but you do a lot of other stuff. So he's explaining to me this negative statement that he could have said to me. Mm-hmm. So it's great to use in your personal life too. And this is a good one too. I was thinking, I really don't think I'm a good friend to you. I wish my daughter would use this on her friends so that then they could talk to her about this and she could talk to them about this. But it just opens up the conversation, to say, I don't, maybe I'm not. I'm not a good friend to you. No, you are. You're a great friend. You're a great friend. So let them explain why you are wrong. That's actually it. So this tool is something I learned in Sandler sales training. I don't know if you guys have heard of Sandler at all. Something I took back in the 90s. And it was huge for my business. But this is what I really took out of it, and Kate and Heather know I use this a lot. I use this a lot, but it works. It is the most valuable tool I have in my toolbox for having a conversation and closing a deal. Mm-hmm. For sure. All right. Okay, guys. Well, thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
I wish I had this a year ago. This was perfect for